We're going to get people dressed in similar attire, acting like they've never had a drink before. Hopefully won't be acting like that tonight, but
we'll see.
We'll try. So
Guys.
again, we're live again. Hey! I don't know whether we go through the introduction or whether we've just restored the live stream. So if we have just cut in again, welcome to our Christmas tasting. I'm not going to go through the first bit, but what I'm going to say is that we're going to do a nice tasting. Christmas is all about family, so to celebrate that and to give you guys and the audience and people at home a little bit more of a taste of the Brew York family, we're going to invite different people from different departments in the business on to talk a little bit about beer, talk about what they do for us, and to join us in tasting these different beers and give their feedback, hopefully all positive. So I mentioned get the free dark beers out the fridge, so Fairytale, Nightmare and Barrel Aged Nightmare. So they're all going to taste better once they warm up. If you don't like dark beer or you're vegan, this is probably not the tasting session to join us from, because unfortunately these are all pretty much milk stouts or what's the Dreams? It's a pastry sour. So apologies about that. We should have also mentioned that as well, because we put some snacks, some Christmas themed snacks in the audience, and I think you bought some Christmas turkey flavoured crisps, didn't you, Pete?
Turkey and stuffing.
Turkey and stuffing. So again, not very good for if you're a vegetarian.
Well, maybe not. Quite often these meat flavoured crisps actually have no meat content whatsoever. I know beef crisps don't have beef in, for example. That might be a bit generalist. Don't go out and consume all beef crisps.
Don't follow all these advice on. Yeah.
So we're going to be doing the 4 beers. So for I think the last 3 to maybe 4 years, we've done 4 beers at Christmas. We started out slightly further back, only doing the one. We did Fairytale of Brew York, a milk stout coming in at 4.9%, and then we've always changed the recipe up. It's always been a 4.9% beer, and then we've changed it each year. I think the first year was Wayne's recipe, and we did a kind of an eggnog type one, and then every year we've done like gingerbread and peanut and pecan and all these bonkers things. And this year we've gone with a Stollen flavoured one. And as I said, a few years ago, we extended the range to include 3 other beers. The second beer, ABV-wise, in the range is Dreams of Brew York. That's a 6.5% pastry sour. Always has to have a Christmas element, so it's usually cranberry and something. So this year, it's cranberry, red currant, and apple with a little bit of cinnamon to give it kind of that strudel-like character.
And your favourite? It's not Christmas beer unless you sprinkle cinnamon in it.
Indeed, indeed. And then the third in the range is Nightmare of Brew York, which is a double of the previous year's Fairytale. So it comes in at 9.8%, and last year's Fairytale was gingerbread. So this year's Nightmare is a gingerbread imperial milk stout. And then at the very top end of the range, still at 9.8%, we've got a barrel-aged version of the previous year's Nightmare, which is, of course, the previous year's to that Fairytale. Easy to follow? Yeah? Okay. So the previous year's Fairytale and last year's Nightmare was a peanut, pecan, maple and vanilla imperial milk stout. And I had to refer to the notes because of how complicated that particular one was. So we're going to be sampling
3 years to get used to it.
Yeah, I'm still not there. So yeah, we've got 4 beers to sample, and as Joanna said, we'll be inviting a different member of the team on to sample each beer with us, starting with our head brewer, Tom, shortly. So, because this isn't our standard monthly YouTube, we want to kind of mix it up a little bit. So we're going to be running a competition alongside doing this tasting. And for someone, they are going to win, let me remind myself, is it a hoodie and a hat? Is that correct? Anyone? Can I get a nod?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. So someone's going to win a Brew York hoodie and a Brew York hat, and that's going to be for the best question of the night. So as we always say, we like this session to be as interactive as possible, and you can make or break that. So the more questions we get from you, whether that be the audience here in the room or the audience live online in the room, pop your hand up. Hopefully we can get pen and paper out, or are we just going to take questions in the room? We're taking questions in the room? I'm taking that as a yes.
I think you're talking to yourself tonight.
Yeah, it looks like it, doesn't it? Okay, online, of course, as always, you can just comment below this video. We've got people behind the camera over there. They will then send through the most appropriate and censored versions of questions. And then at the end of tonight's feed, we'll go through your questions. We'll offer up some answers, hopefully. And then Wayne and I will decide which we consider to be the best question of the night, and that individual will win a hoodie and beanie.
So yeah. I think all our live audience, in-person audience, have arrived now. So appreciate you might not all have the most perfect viewing positions at the moment, so feel free to move your chairs about, adjust your seating and stuff. We know where everyone is, we know the cameras are, so you guys get yourself comfortable, and apologies. We're just still fine-tuning how the layout works best for these type of tastings. Obviously, if we weren't doing the cameras, it'd work perfectly because we just walk around and talk to you, but just trying to get it right. And obviously, as usual, you need to go to the loo or anything throughout. If you put your hand, if you just head out and obviously close the door after you. So I'll usually be the first out. So if you can follow, it's an in-house joke that I seem to go to the toilet the most.
Why our online community run a thing that they call the sweet weep sticks to determine who's going to go to the loo first? I don't know, because it's completely pointless, because it is always you.
I think that you just go for a half an hour pee before we start, because you're always the last one here.
This any further, anyway. So, sorry, final bit on the questions. Me and Wayne have answered a lot of your questions in the past, and we're more than happy to do that again tonight. But given we've got 4 different members of the team on, it'd be really good if some of your questions were directed at them, and perhaps towards their respective roles in the business.
And we'll ask some questions if you guys don't. We'll grill them. But the other thing that people at home might not get to appreciate as much as we will in person, but Pete's been round and bought all these festive snacks. So you on the tables around us, I mean, Pete could probably switch to the audience cam. We've got these little snacks set up, which includes Stollen. So we can actually do a Stollen beer tasting alongside Stollen, which is great. But we'll probably just eat all the Stollen before we get to the beer.
Okay. And this line I'm going to read word for word. So, as we are now official YouTubers, we would really appreciate it if you could please like this video and hit subscribe. This will really help us with the YouTube algorithm and help boost this video. Woo! Yeah.
So apparently,
that cheer was from our marketing manager.
So we've always done the tastings, and it's all about you guys at home and in the audience tasting the beer and talking to us and giving us feedback on the beer. We haven't worried too much about the back of house stuff, because we just do it because we enjoy it, and hopefully you guys in the audience and at home enjoy it. But there are other things that we can do. If we get more people watching the videos or subscribing to the videos, we can reach a wider audience. We certainly haven't signed up for the revenue sharing bit on it anyway, so we don't get paid anything for doing these. So
I have to confess, this, us being official YouTubers, was news to me until I read this little prompt. But apparently we are, and you need to like this video for some reason. There you go.
Because it's great.
Was that on brand?
Very much so. Appreciate it.
We need to push the mics away. Okay,
or was it just Lee?
So final bit before we go on to the first bit. If you have any feedback tonight or at any other point, you can reach us at info@brewyork.co.uk. So let's welcome our first guest, Tom Mahoney, head brewer of Brew York. You're like quadruple back now.
I know. I've got as many beers as possible.
So this is Tom. Maybe we start out by you telling us a little bit about yourself, some of your brewing history, perhaps.
Yeah. So I've been with Brew York now for about 18 months-ish, a bit longer maybe. So I joined.
It's felt like longer.
Yeah. Joined kind of summer of 21. So kind of moved up from London. So I was previous to this job, I was the head brewer at Partisan Brewing in London on the Bermondsey Beer Mile. Previous to that, I kind of dabbled in a bit of brew pub brewing, so kind of did a bit of solo brewing at a brew pub for a year. I was also working at 5 Points Brewery in Hackney in London. And then before that, I grew up in a little town called Dorking, and I was kind of started off as an apprentice brewer for my local brewery. So kind of have worked my way up the kind of greasy pole, as it were, to where I am now.
Interesting terminology.
Yeah. But yeah, no, me and my partner, Naomi, grew up in York. So after COVID and with everything that happened, we just thought it was a good time to kind of get out of London and do something different. And luckily for me, these guys were looking for someone, and I filled that hole. So
You're former landlord and landlady tuning in at the moment because you've just moved into your
exactly. Yeah, we've just bought somewhere up here. It's taken forever. So given that we've been up here for the best part of 18 months, literally until last week I was living with the in-laws. So but it's been all right. It's been good. So it's quite nice to have a bit of our own space and freedom.
I suppose this is a matter of public record. So
exactly.
So, what would you say your kind of beer specialities are? Either what you like to make or like to drink. What gets you excited in it?
Well, I think recently, like for us, kind of a plug, I suppose. Winter Hut in town has just opened, and we've done an American light lager for them as kind of their kind of house beer, kind of for the people. So like a beer that everyone can get on board with, and I think that's kind of what I like to brew is kind of beer that everyone's going to enjoy and everyone's going to drink. Don't know. Before Brew York, I was brewing a lot of kind of Belgian sort of inspired beers at Partisan. So we've not done any of that here yet. But no, I don't know. I'd like to try and say I'm a bit of a jack of all trades and happy to do a bit of everything, really. So, but no, at the moment, lagers, definitely lager. Like lagers are kind of any brewer. Well, not any brewer, but a lot of brewers I've worked with over the years will invariably say that their go-to is a lager kind of thing, with the exception of probably these two. So, at the moment, so you can go to the Winter Hut and drink Alpine Star, which, I really like. Very different from Golden Eagle.
Okay.
So I'm going to hold it. No, I'm not joking. We're not going to put it that close.
I'm not loud enough.
If you lean a little bit closer towards it.
Yeah.
Is it actually on?
No.
Well, that would be why then.
Yeah, battery's gone. No, it's not. It is, battery's gone, because you put them in the Christmas lights earlier. Sorry. I think all the batteries went in the Christmas lights, fairy lights earlier. Sorry, this is going to be a technology challenged tasting today. So let's talk about the beer we're drinking. So Fairytale Brew York, Lee said that we did the different iterations. Did he talk about the ABV on it?
I did, but it wouldn't hurt to hear it again.
So every single year we brew it, we keep it at 4.9%. So this is the accessible version of the beer. So we like to get a bit carried away, as we'll do on the tasting later, and try some of the stronger stuff. But we need we wanted a beer that most people could try and hopefully enjoy and want to go back and have multiple pints of. So this beer in particular, we do quite a large volume of each year. We do it in cask, so the traditional hand pull. We do the keg version, and we also do the can version. Keg version sold out in record time this year. So if you do see it, it's you're not going to see it very often. So enjoy it while you can. We were hopefully going to do a nitro version of it, but because the beer ran out, we didn't get a chance to do it. And then the can version, which we do have a few hundred cases of left, and that's pretty much it of the Christmas beers this year.
I think it's less than that now.
Is it? They're sold rapidly.
I think there's about 60 cases of this one left, maybe.
So what have we put in it to make it Stollen while we're eating Stollen?
Well, I just had a bite of Stollen to remind myself. So this was quite a complicated, well, not complicated, but quite in comparison to other beers, I think we've hopefully put a lot of thought into this one. So
because we don't normally, do we?
Because we don't normally, no. But no.
Chuck it in.
Yeah.
Hopefully it turns out.
Well,
right.
Stollen is quite a. Well, I don't know what if I can do an audience. Can I do an audience poll?
Camera, Pete.
Yeah. Stollen, I think, is quite a divisive kind of Christmassy cake. It's not like you go to mince pie or Christmas pudding and stuff like that. But I think it's very. I don't know. My family have it at Christmas, and I think a lot of other families do. And
I think quite a few people, much to my disgust, find mince pies a bit marmite.
yeah.
I absolutely love mince pies, but apparently they're not for everyone.
We've got a variety in the audience today. We've got a variety of customers in the audience, but we also have a variety of mince pies. including a salted caramel and a chocolate one,
Oh, no, I think I'd be a bit more purist on that one.
like you are with beer.
Anyway, sorry, Tom. So how do we make it Stollen?
So for this one, we so it's got a fair few different kind of fruits and spices in it. The two main fruit we put in this one are lemon. So we put a bit of lemon zest into the boil with the beer, and alongside that we also put some dried orange peel. So dried orange peel is quite a traditional kind of brewing ingredient. Like the Belgians use it a lot in kind of wits and stuff like that. So that's quite nice to use that. We then also added cardamom, allspice, and cinnamon actually. So that's 5 things that aren't hops that we're adding into the boil, and you can really overdo it. And I think with this one we've really sort of hit a nice balance with it, that it's not overly one thing or another, and everything. I think that's the nice thing about hot side as well, is like it's much easier to kind of you don't have to. You can be a bit braver on hot side than maybe you can overdo it with anything. But we've found recently that kind of putting cinnamon hot side is a lot better than cold side. So Kirsch Russell's probably the obvious one for any drinkers out there. That we used to put the cinnamon cold side for that one, and we used to make, well, John in the audience used to do it, used to make a tea out of it, and we'd put that in cold side, whereas now we just throw it in the boil and we get a better result for less effort, which is kind of good for us.
So typically when you're brewing beer, what do you normally put in hot side versus cold side part of that process? When we say hot side, on the brew day, the 8 hour-ish, or maybe a lot less than that now in our new kit, but the 6 to 8 hour brew day, is the hot side. Then when the beer goes into the fermenter where we add the yeast and it converts the sugar to alcohol, that's when we mean the cold side, and that takes 2 to 3 weeks. So the brew day itself, what on a normal pale ale, what would go in a hot side?
So, well, it depends really. So if you think about your kind of West Coast, if we're going to do it like that, you'd have hops essentially. So you have your bittering hops at the start, and that's kind of what gets you your IBUs and that kind of classic kind of bitter taste that you get in beer. More modern beers like Neepers, and in our case, say like Hazel Thunder, we won't put any boil hops. It will all be whirlpool. So whirlpooling is kind of, you boil the beer for a set amount of time and then you cool it down to 80 degrees or whatever you decide that temperature is going to be, and then you put the hops in at the end. So it's kind of like a steep, I suppose. A lot of these bits we would have put in at the end of the boil, so it's probably more akin to that whirlpool kind of stage. So we're really lucky what we can get away with putting in our kit actually. So we found now that for instance a lemon zest, it's cut up fine enough that we can just throw it in and not have to worry about it, which is quite nice. So
and that's because you need to get the ingredient back out. It won't go into the final beer, so it'll be filtered before it gets to the fermenter. It won't go to the final beer, but it could be left in the vessel, which means someone has to climb in and clean it. Yeah. And last time you were on the site and Santa got stuck in the chimney.
So that's the kind of, so with all of these beers we're going to have tonight, we use obviously the milk stout, so lactose, and they come with inner lining to the bag. So clever me, tipped the entire lining of the bag into the kettle. And Lee wouldn't let me go in.
Well, it's got quite a powerful pump attached to it, so it then got sucked down the drain and then was stuck down this pipe. And we were there with we attached
on a Saturday.
No, we attached a coat hanger to a wooden pole with loads of tape, and then we were trying to fish it out, and that wasn't working. One of us is going to have to go in.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I pay the public liability insurance, so it's clearly going to be me. and it turns out I've put on quite a few pounds since I last went in the vessel, and I got wedged in the like that in the top.
The access man.
Which then meant that I had to lift him out by standing on top of it.
Well, no, that was
Have you pushed him in first?
Pushed him in first.
Yeah, I kind of got wedged, and they're quite tall vessels. I'm like 6'3", and I'm just like, my feet are dangling in there like that. And I thought, right, well, in for a penny, in for a pound. The only way now is to kind of squeeze myself in further and go all the way in. So I was then in there, and then Tom had the challenge of pulling out nice, delicate little 19 stone of meat. At one point, we thought we were going to have to get the fire brigade in to get me back out of it.
Yeah.
There was the liquid had been drained by this point.
Yeah.
You weren't swimming.
I would have had third-degree burns if I'd been in there at that point. But why we're kind of emphasising hot side versus cold side is hot side, you only get one opportunity. You've only got, like Werner said, that 6 to 8 hour period. Towards the end of that, when you boil it, you can throw some spices in. That's your one chance. Whereas cold side, what John, our cellar manager, will be doing is he might make a tea of some cinnamon, and that's then in liquid form. And then John can put a little bit of that in, and then he can bring it to me and Tom, and we can go, it needs more. And then he can add a bit more, and we can gradually dose it up until we get to a level where we think that's the right amount of cinnamon for this recipe. So that's nice and easy, that's controlled. To do it hot side, you've got to be damn confident about the amounts that you're using. And I would hope that over the years that we've been working with all these different spices and different beers, we've got to understand what they're going to deliver. So hopefully we have delivered some balance with this beer. And I think Tom, me, the team, we all much prefer the flavour that comes through when it is introduced at the hot side as opposed to the cold side.
Yeah, definitely.
It's really enjoyable. It definitely tastes very Christmassy to me because of the different spices that are in there. But anyone in the live audience tonight, interesting one would be if you do hang around afterwards to try it on cask, see if you can taste the difference, because cask's served at a warmer temperature. So typically the keg beer or can that we've just drank will be anywhere from like 4 to 6 degrees, maybe a little bit warmer. We try to take it out of the fridge before so that you get some more of the flavour coming through, but it still won't have warmed up that much. Whereas the cask beer downstairs will be stored at about 10 to 12 degrees, and by the time it's been pulled through the angram into your glass, be about 14 degrees, if not a little bit warmer. So you really get all the different flavours that we try to put in there, not just from the spices, but from the malt backbone of that beer. Lots and lots of different dark malts in there to give you a nice chocolatey flavouring taste in there as well, and coffee and things like that. So it'd be really interesting one if you do like it, to try it again on cask and see what you think of the differences.
So, straw poll, what do we think of the balance of this? Is there any ingredient you would want to see more of?
What I've not mentioned actually is, so that was all the hot side stuff. Cold, so that was five ingredient. Well, five ingredients. So there were 2 more, so vanilla. We put vanilla in it because vanilla in these kind of pastry stouts kind of rounds them all out. It's like a really good kind of trick for just making the perceived. Not that this beer needs to be any sweeter. Like I think it's pretty balanced in terms of sweetness, but something we do in sours quite often is put some vanilla in them because it kind of gives a perceived sweetness to it. And the other one is Tonka, obviously, because
it's Brew York.
In shock Brew York move, they added Tonka.
But Tonka obviously is the kind of marzipan element of it, which I think we've nailed really. I think to be honest, this is in terms of. I think we've really hit what is probably quite a difficult brief when. I don't know whose idea this was.
Yeah, when we sat at the... we do it each year. We sit in a room, we talk about the ideas of the Christmas beers, and I know that your idea or your preference was certainly not this one, but we just felt it would be a great Christmas
Nor was it mine, and not because I don't like Stollen, it's just there's so many different elements to a Stollen that's a hell of a thing to try and recreate and get those balance of things when you're only getting this one attempt to do it as well. So it wasn't that neither myself nor Tom wanted to create a Stollen beer. It's just we knew the size of the mountain we were about to try and climb.
And for this beer, I think the guys have pulled it off really well. So I don't really get that much involved in the production anymore. It's across to these guys. So we'll sit in the room and come up with a wacky idea or a marketing something that we'll think we can sell well, and then the challenge goes across to these guys to actually pull it off. So I think they've done a great job on this beer. And what's really exciting is, just remember that what Lee said earlier, next year this beer becomes Nightmare. So it'll be a nightmare for you guys. But no, in reality it won't, because 9% beer will be a lot easier to pull off those flavours. In the 4% beer, there's nothing to hide behind. Whereas the 9% beer will have a much thicker, fuller body anyway, because it's a stronger stout. We'll be able to get some of the flavours dialed in really well, and it's going to be a really cool beer. And then the year after that, the barrel-aged Nightmare is going to be really good.
No.
So I've just realised I've just finished my beer and your beer, because you finished Tom's beer.
Oh, is that my beer? Well, half my can had been poured in Tom's glass, so I just assumed it was mine anyway.
I'm good.
Anyway, so, going back to my question, and I think I'll direct to you first, Tom.
Yeah.
Is there any element of it where you would want to have dialed a bit down or dialed a bit up?
I think that's quite difficult for me, because I do legitimately think this is one of the most balanced beers we've done recently, actually. I think what's super interesting for me as well is, like, obviously I'm trying these beers during the time, well, and the same for these
Throughout
two
the
guys.
process.
And we'll get to the day of packaging the beer and we'll be happy with it and we'll package it, and then you'll leave it in a can for a few weeks and it will taste so much better after a few weeks. And I think this is the kind of, our industry's got to the point now where fresh is best. And yeah, it is, like Captain Strata, for instance, over there. Like 100%, like hoppy beers you want to drink fresh, but you don't really want to drink them on the kind of day that they've been made, because they're not going to taste as good. Like, conditioning time doesn't, it kind of, I think for me, it's quite important that just a week in can will do wonders to a beer, and it's really nice for me to try these beers kind of, again, because this isn't new for me. Like, I've been in the process the whole time of this beer, so it's not a new thing for me.
And never has what Tom was saying there been truer than with dark beer.
Mm-hmm.
Dark beer, pretty much the worst time you could be drinking it is immediately after it's been packaged.
Yeah.
It mostly continues to get better. In fact, many of them, you can almost ignore the best before date, because they will quite often be better after the best before date. And I'm going to get people in some microbial problems there.
Yeah.
I know.
Oxygen.
Do that with stronger dark beer. Don't do that with weak dark beer.
But oxygen and beer don't really mix, and when oxygen comes in contact with beer, it starts to spoil and starts to cause problems. But in dark beer, it's not so much of a problem. So especially cask dark beer as well. So enjoy it when you get a chance. We are kind of running a bit short on time now, so let's jump to beer of the year. Brew York beer of the year.
Brew, for me, Kairaku, which we did in Feb or March, very early in the year. So I think I kind of, again, kind of what I was saying earlier was, that was, so I don't know, if you hadn't had it, Kairaku was a cold IPA. So we were fairly quick off the mark, I think, as UK breweries go to do this style. So I know there's like a lot of breweries now. What are we in November? Just bringing them out, and we'd already done. We did one in.
It was this time last year, wasn't it? And then we launched it in January, February, I think.
Yeah.
I don't remember. It was certainly early in the year. I can't give you a
exactly.
date.
So for those who don't know, cold IPA is essentially an IPA. You make an IPA, but you just use lager yeast instead of ale yeast, and you kind of put the emphasis on it being crisp and more West Coasty, but it's not. It's very different. Well, I don't know. It's going to sound silly, but it's very different from an IPL. So IPL is just a hoppy lager. This isn't necessarily a lager. It's an IPA with lager yeast. So you ferment it at ale temperatures using. So it's a bit like a kind of super backwards kind of a bit like a steam beer or a Kolsch, but it's not.
To explain a few of the things that Tom referenced there. So if you experienced any of the first American beers that came into the UK, maybe as long as 10 years ago, maybe 7 years ago. They were what we now refer to as West Coast IPAs. So they were kind of clear in appearance, but they were really quite bitter, and they would have kind of a piney, resinous kind of character. And now we've had the evolution of beer, and now we have these things called the East Coast, and they're the hazy ones that are kind of juicy and not bitter. So what Tom's describing is that a cold IPA is kind of a cross between that original style of American beer that made it to this country and a lager. And I think that's why the three of us love it, because we really love West Coast, and we're all a little bit disappointed that the majority of the beer drinking world has gone across to these juicy, hazy things, because we like bitterness in beer.
Yeah.
I say as I'm drinking, but the juicy,
Yeah,
hazy West
no,
Coast,
no.
East Coast we did recently.
Yeah,
Which is
exactly.
nice to have one or two, but they blend into one another.
So yeah,
Yeah.
and last week we brewed a
that's
collab
good.
with.
Yeah, so that's kind of pretty gratifying from my point of view as the head brewer, is that we were obviously we were talking with Big Smoke obviously last week when we did the collab with them, and they were really keen to do a cold IPA off the back of kind of Karaku, and I don't know, also like what I was saying about Alpine Star, and yeah, it's that American light lager kind of thing. So like using corn and rice and just to, I don't know. You just can drink buckets of the stuff, so it's good.
If I may blow our own trumpet, I still think we have made one of the best UK cold IPAs. I drink so many other of them, and they're not what I would consider a cold IPA to be. It has to have bitterness, it has to be clear.
Yeah.
And I'm drinking too many that are neither of those two things.
So we launch. Remind me the name? The Big Smoke collab. It's Nano.
Nanook.
When do we launch that? Early January. No, it's early December. It's not early January. So we launched that in a few weeks' time. So if you haven't had a cold IPA and you don't know what one is, that'd be a great chance to try one. So with Karaku, we went with what or tried to get as close to the style guidelines as we could for a beer style that hasn't really been defined. So we went kind of strong. So it was 6.7%, I think, from memory, which is great. It's a great way to showcase that beer, but the UK drinker on a whole don't really drink that many 6.7% beers. We might, but we don't expect a lot of other people to. So we've dialed it down a little bit in ABV to try and make it a bit more accessible. Is it about 5.5, something like that?
5.4?
Yeah.
Sound about right?
Yeah.
So it's going
Why
to
do
be.
we go 5.7?
5, yeah, I think, 5, yeah. We make a lot of beer.
Somewhere
so
between 5 and 6.
Yeah.
And there's no real science behind it. We just know that what ABV will put people off drinking and what ABV is accessible, and people will be more open to drinking it. So, and also you then got to try and get the balance right between getting the best flavour profile in that beer and what ABV, what strength of the beer will be able to pull off that flavour. So it's sometimes a bit of a science, but in reality, when it's a one-off beer, we kind of just let it land. So we'll aim for 5.7, and if it comes in 5.8.
Sorry, so we do have other beers to drink and other guests to talk to, but before you go, Tom, you're not off the hook yet. We do have some questions for you from some of our viewers. So, what Belgian beers do you like? And that's from Judy. Is my mum watching? Do we think is it my mum? It genuinely is my mum.
Dame Judy.
Where I'm going to embarrass myself probably, but no, Blue Moon. Yeah. There's a beer, brewery, the beer is called Troubadour Magma, and that's probably my favourite because it's essentially an American beer made in Belgium. So it's like, for those of you who've not had it, it's a Belgian triple that's heavily hopped, so it was kind of like a double IPA before double IPAs were a thing, I suppose. But,
So another one for you. Any brews you want to do that you've yet to convince me and Leon?
Again, without keep harking on about Alpine Star, that was something I've wanted to do for ages with American lager. There's loads of stuff I want to do and people want to do. I think I don't know really. I'd like us to do more kind of, which we are already going to do, is more kind of different types of pale ales next year. So I think this year we've kind of just done either like West Coast or hazy boys, but yeah, I think just doing some kind of really solid, kind of sessionable pails would be fun, I think.
So one of the things that we've tried to do a lot more of in the last 12 months, in particular, if not the last 18 months, is encourage the production team to create recipes, work on recipes, and come up with ideas. If you were to rewind 2 years and you'd have said that Lee would have let the brewery team do a American-style lager and an English hopped pale, you'd have been very, very surprised. But the two of the styles we've done this year that have turned out really, really good, and we'd like to
Turns
try.
out my team have got some good influences, guys.
We did a saison or two.
Yeah, we
which
could
is-
maybe down. The thing is, we saison. Without going into it, saison yeast is not what you want running around your brewery if you can avoid it. But maybe here at Wongate to do something like that soon would be good.
Like a sour cask beer.
Sour
Oh,
gas.
God, no. I'm going to cover this one off quite quickly because we are behind time. Would you consider making a vegan Christmas stout? Next year, potentially for Christmas, but you might want to look at what we're doing for January. One of the things about January is it's also called Veganuary. So there might be a few things that we're doing for that you might want to keep your eye out for. Final one, or second to last one actually, for Tom. Any chance of a Belgian stout? And that's from Vince.
Belgian stout.
I don't know that I've had. Oh no, I have had one. What's the Thingy Edward series? Black Damnation
I've not
by
had that.
Destroy Set. Yeah, they're really good.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought about doing kind of like a dark saison before. Never actually done it.
I think our sales team would love you if you were to make that one.
It wouldn't sell. I would. What I have done, kind of. The Belgian beer that I've been involved with Brew York actually is we did a collab with Phantom. Down in Reading.
That was this time last year for Clabbergeddon.
Yeah, for Clabbergeddon this time last year, and I couldn't make it down. So Nadia, who is now
That
one
was
of our
a coffee double.
yeah, that was a coffee. So that was really good actually. It was like a Belgian double with coffee in it, and that worked really well. So I don't know though. I can't like we make some Brew York has its own identity type thing, and I think blending. You can't really blend a lot of. There's no point sometimes. Is what I'm trying to say. So we kind of stick to. I think we're doing a good job.
Pete's just flashed me.
Yeah.
How rude. So last thing before you leave us, Tom.
Yeah.
What's been your highlight of the last year?
Moving house last weekend.
Obviously, you're not allowed to go. So work-wise, what's been your highlight of the last year?
Having Charlie Johnson out, who these guys obviously know, but none of you will. So, no, so Charlie, we obviously work with Guilo to make their beers in the UK, and Charlie's an American brewer who owns and runs a American brewery called Ronin out of California. And he came over for a week and just kind of hung out with us and just kind of reaffirmed it's really important for me as a brewer, but more so than a brewer, but just as like a team manager and kind of running the day-to-day kind of operations of Brew York, to have someone to come in to help us and just work with us and just kind of reaffirm what we were doing is good. And it was a really fun week. And
it was. So Charlie, Tom's probably understated a bit there.
Yeah.
Charlie is basically brewing royalty. This guy is of an incredible standard, and the people he has worked with, myself and Wayne and the rest of the team, can only ever dream of. This guy knows everybody, and because of our connection with Guilo, he was able to come across, spend some time with us, do this assessment, which Tom's right, it was a very great validation of where we are. To have someone of that caliber walk in and go, you guys are really good. Obviously there's always room for improvement, and we'd all be bored if there wasn't things for us to be looking at. But for him to come in and say, yeah, you're absolutely nailing it, but maybe do this, maybe do that, was really, really, really cool. And my God, that boy can drink.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been more
It takes
hungover
a
at
lot
work.
to leave me and Wayne behind.
Yeah.
And I'm a bit of a Chesney Hawks, I'm a one-night wonder. I will drink anybody under the table on night one, but don't expect me to be there for night two.
Yeah.
But this guy can do it night after night after night. I don't know what his kidneys and liver are made out of.
He's a nice guy, a consultant who works with loads of really good breweries, but he's also in the backyard. When I say backyard, it's a 2-hour drive for him to get to a shop. But in the backyard of Russian River, a really, really good brewery in America, they make a beer called Pliny the Elder. What else do they do?
Pliny the Younger.
But really, really high regarded brewery who actually go and visit him and do the same sort of thing for him, and he goes and visits their brewery. So basically, they check in each other, look at the processes, look at what you can do to make recommendations on what you could do better, also what you can refine, and also learn from each other. So for him to come and spend some time with us and do the same thing was really great. So hopefully we'll get to go to California and do the same to him.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Yeah. Right. So can we have a round of applause in the room for Tom? Ahead, Brew. So Tom, hand your microphone back to Hans. And then can we welcome onto camera Joe from our sales team?
So I'm not actually going to the toilet for once. I just noticed that the audience were a bit warm, so I was going to turn the fire off. If it is warm.
You're definitely doing the right thing turning the heating off. I've got a jumper on over here. It is getting very warm in this room. Right. So this is Joe, or Joanna, which would you rather be known as?
Joanna.
Joanna,
It has to be Joanna now, because we have two Joes in the
How come
sales
you've
team.
never told me this? I've always called you Joe.
Oh, I don't mind that, but we've got a new guy in the sales team called Joe, who every time they talk about Joe, I'm like a meerkat in the meetings.
Yeah.
And jump up and think that you're talking about me.
And we're always slagging Joe off as well. London Joe, so we need to get it.
You might want to qualify which one you're talking about there.
No, I'm only joking. We wouldn't ever slag Joe, not London Joe, we'd slag this Joe off, but no one else.
Yeah. So I've come dressed as the beer today.
Right,
She said dress as Christmas.
blend into the room.
I thought I'd dress as the beer.
Right, so how about we start out with telling everybody, once your mic's on, you've occupied a few different roles at Brew York, so how about you talk us through your history with us?
Right, so
Before you do, sorry to cut you off, everyone's got the beer, haven't they? Everyone's got Dreams of Brew York and everyone's pouring it so they can start drinking while we do some talking.
I forgot what I was going to say. So I remember coming here when you first opened, when Waters was behind the bar and you had your pork pies under the cloche. And it was kind of a gap in the market in terms of York and craft beer, because I'm really old. So I remember when there wasn't a lot of choice in craft beer when I was kind of a student. So I started off drinking, my first drink was Guinness, and then it was followed by Landlord. And at the time, there were lots of gassy beers around, and it wasn't my kind of thing. I wanted craft beers, but there wasn't loads of them. So kind of when you opened up in York, it was like, yeah, great. So it became my first love, really. And I'd had my time being in my professional world, whatever that may have been, and I was at a beer festive in Leeds, and
remember that. City.
And
It costed me.
these guys turned up, and I cornered them, and I just said, "Give us a job." I said, "You've got loads of young people working for you. I'm old. You need equal opportunities on your workforce. Can I have a job?"
And that was pretty much word for word. I remember it was Dark and Wild City at Northern Monk.
I don't, because the average strength of the beer was over 8%, so I don't remember any of it.
And Joe's partner, Michael, who's also in the room, has been to a lot of different events that we've done. So I kind of recognised him from that and knew him to say hello to, but I didn't know Joe at the time. And first thing Joe said to me was, "Give me a job." So it was, okay, I think we are recruiting at the moment in our beer hall. At the time, I think it was beer hall.
Yeah. So within an hour, I had a job, which was working behind the bar in the beer hall and the tap room. And I absolutely loved it. It was such a change. And I think I really got stuck in. And I was quite proactive and busy. And the next thing was, I think I was maybe 2 or 3 weeks in, and John, the bar manager, came in and said, we're opening another bar, we want you to be bar manager.
Yeah, so we had this was going back to December 19, so back in the good old days as they were.
Was it 18? 18?
We opened the beer hall
'Cause-
August 18.
But I'm just thinking.
Probably was, yeah.
So then, how long did you work for us before you went to the new bar? Was it a few months or?
No, just a few weeks.
Yeah. So yeah, it was
quick.
19 then. So December 19. We went and found, we heard that the bar was up for sale in Pocklington. So anyone in the audience might know where Pocklington is. If you're watching at home, it's a small village on the outskirts of York. And
Just wave to my friends,
Pocklington
all the
crew.
friends I made.
so there was a brewery in the area called Hop Studio, and they had set up a tap room in Pocklington, and they were putting their brewery up for sale, and they were selling their tap room. And we saw what they built there, and we thought it was a really cool, ready-to-go venue. But there was just a few bits and pieces we thought we'd need to do to make it into a Brew York venue. And yeah, you didn't live that far from Pocklington, but it turns out you did because you live near our new brewery. But you didn't. What we thought was relatively close. And because Jo had done a good job working here, we thought she'd be a natural fit for the venue in Poc. And moved across there, did the training, got the place ready to go. We launched in January 2020 and closed 2 months later. Or paused things 2 months later when COVID kicked off. So I've started cutting on your story there, but yeah.
Yeah. So it was kind of busy, but it was kind
Sorry, the
Apparently Siri's got something to say to Win.
so it was good to sort of make friends, and we kind of was selling beer from the doorway basically because of the regulations, and people weren't allowed actually into the venue. So I had to put the tables around the doorway and had all the beers for sale. And I was texting people saying, right, we've got this new beer coming in, but I'm only got limited quantities, so it was a kind of sell, because I really wanted to boost the sales, but then we sort of closed completely. And then I moved over to the beer hall, and actually beer sales really took off in cans. And so I was packing all the boxes that were being sent out over the COVID lockdown. And literally we were running around the beer hall packing these boxes because we couldn't keep up with demand.
It's so weird now because it feels like a long time ago, but we were bringing, and anyone joined at home, and possibly some of the audience probably remember this, but we were bringing 2 to 3 beers out a week during COVID. We just new ideas, new recipes. So it was great for the production team getting to try these ideas out. But there were so many new beers to launch, and they were selling so quickly. So we moved all of the furniture out of the beer hall. We just had it as a big shell, and then we deliver pallets of one beer, and then line up the lots of different pallets of the different beers, and we just walk around, grab a can, pick a box, and pick the orders that way. It was so surreal now looking back at it. But yeah, it was weirdly a very, very much less stressful time than it is right now with all the energy crisis, all the other things going on. At least, obviously, there was a horrible time, COVID, but certain parts of it and the simplicity of things.
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, but the simplicity of things for us as a business, where we were just focused on one product, cans, and then packaging those cans, putting them into a box and shipping them direct to the consumer, was so much more simple than how our business operates now or used to operate before COVID.
And the beer in a box.
Yeah.
So jumping on, so we were then eventually able to open Pocklington full time.
Yes. But unfortunately, for some reason, my ankle gave way, so I couldn't be on my feet anymore. So I had to sadly give my notice in, which was a tough time. And there were no other jobs available sort of to apply for in the meantime. So I went off, somebody else I know offered me a job, so I went off to work for them. But in the meantime, you guys were doing beer festivals, so I was still coming back doing the beer festivals, still pestering you, give me a job, give me a job. And what my job that I do now actually came up, and you rang me, didn't you? And you said, right, we've got this job, and I said, I can't really just at this moment. And it came up again, and this time you guys were over in, where were you in?
I can't, probably Leeds, but
No, you were in Norway or somewhere.
Oh right, yeah, in Scandinavia, one of them. I can't remember.
Scandinavia somewhere. And I saw the job on Facebook, and I'm messaging you saying, oh, I've seen the job. Can I apply? Can I have it?
I probably replied saying no. And,
No, you didn't.
So I've got a very strange sense of humour, and I assume that given that Joe's worked for us for quite a few years and has known me quite a while, I usually make sarcastic comments, but I'm not. But I'm being joking. But we were at York Beer Festival this year, and Joe was in technically a trial period, but she said, oh, I'm worried I'm getting something wrong. So don't worry, I'll just sack you, it's fine. And genuinely, on Monday, you checked with Alison, our HR director, if you were still on your trial period, didn't you? I was like, I was joking. I thought
Oh,
you
yeah,
realised
yeah.
that by now. But,
I had to check I wasn't sacked.
Really? This is all news to me.
So I now work I do the sales admin. So I'm kind of a link person between the warehouse and logistics, between the sales team and accounts. And I kind of keep those people talking and making sure everything runs smooth. I get all the orders out. I'm monitoring about what feels like 50 different platforms in terms of communication and I have this bright pink book, and I have to say to people, it's in the book, so that I remember that nothing gets lost or missed.
In some ways, you're kind of the peacekeeper.
Yeah.
Because whatever the business, there's always somebody who kind of dishes out the work and someone who has to do the work. So sales are kind of making decisions on behalf of the drayman, the warehouse team, and they're saying, yeah, we can get you that beer tomorrow. And then the warehouse team's going, hang on, there's no room on the van. So you're kind of managing that relationship.
Yeah.
I'd say the real skill in what you do is kind of keeping the tempers down, keeping the
making
fuse.
sure, yeah.
What's the first? Keeping the fuse damp. What's the word? Anyone help me?
I think that's a phrase you made up.
There is a word for it.
Peacekeeper.
Yeah.
Anyway, you get the idea.
Keep the cogs oiled.
It's a really crazy job. Every day is a crazy day, and but I absolutely love it. But some days I just think, I feel totally frazzled. But it's how I want to be, and it's how I want to work, and I just love the job, and I hope my passion comes through, and I'm learning every day, and there's new things I can do. And sometimes I have to say to myself, you're only human, you can't do absolutely everything. But we're giving it a good go, and I think we're getting places, and it.
Well, it's natural, isn't it? You want to make sure that everyone's happy, all the customers are happy, all the salespeople are happy, the warehouse team are happy, and with so many different plates to spin, inevitably someone's going to feel a little less happy than the other people one day. So it's managing those relationships and making sure that at the end of the week everyone feels happy.
I'm going to have to interject there. I've had a not so subtle little reminder from
We're drinking a beer.
We are drinking a beer, and other people are drinking said beer, and they may want to know what the beer is that they're drinking. So, yes, I'm seeing some nods in the room, so I'm guessing that's probably the consensus online as well.
Is it sour?
So, sorry to cut across, we'll come back to...
No, finish that one.
Right, superb. So the beer that we're drinking now is Dreams of Brew York. It's a 6.5% Piercey sour. As I said at the start, it has to have a Christmas element. What is more Christmas than cranberry? So this is cranberry, red currant and apple. And then because of those flavours, we put a little bit of cinnamon in. And I'm sure there's something else we added. Vanilla, I can see it. It's written right there.
Yeah.
So we've
Strudel.
kind of created a like strudel-like character. I really like. I'm drinking this now and I'm thinking it's like Kirsch Russell, which I think Tom referenced earlier. It's kind of got that same kind of character to Kirsch Russell, which is I think probably the pastry sour that everybody likes the most on those as well. It's got that very same character, but then it's got a kind of a Christmas element going on with it. So I'm really enjoying it.
I think we tasted it a few weeks back straight off the production line when it was canned, and actually it's got a slightly different taste now to when it has. Yeah, it was really the sour red currants, but the apple's softened in it, and it's kind of softened on a whole. So
It's like there's that kind of dry finish that you associate with drinking cranberry.
yeah.
So we've gone up in ABV from 4.9% up to 6.5% now. So the range is going to get steadily higher. But it doesn't taste too strong. So one of the things Tom mentioned when he was on camera earlier is that sometimes we use a bit of vanilla to soften our sour beers and also to soften beers in general. And then the other thing is this beer has lactose in it. So there's a residual sweetness in the beer, which really helps to mask the strength as well. So 6.5% tastes really easy drinking, hence why most of my can's gone.
Wow. Yeah. Wow, you like that one then?
Yeah, it's really enjoyable, really easy to drink. What about the audience? How do you find going from a stout to a sour? Is that a thumbs up thing or a not so? So one of the other things we found during COVID and during live tastings we do is we managed to convert a lot of people onto sour beer. So we hadn't realised how, because we like sour beer, we just assume everyone does, but it turns out some people really didn't like the thought of a sour beer or the taste of a sour beer. And they started tasting some of the beers like this we do with vanilla and lactose in it. They realised that they actually do quite like sour beers. And it was kind of a gateway sour.
Well, I would say that the bigger and better result we get is someone who says, I don't like beer. And then you give them a sour beer, and then we get them into beer via the route of the sour beer. I think there are many people who would have in the past said, oh, I only do cider, who are now drinking this kind of thing, because it does have a lot in common in terms of its acidity profile and its fruit base.
So we brought Dreams of Brew York into the range about 3 years ago, I think it was, 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, sounds right.
Because we brought Fairytale out first, we had always focused on the stout side of things. Nightmare was a natural progression with it, but Dreams was just a nice way to bring something quite different to the range, and it really breaks it up. So typically when we do a tasting, we'll stick to one style and we'll progress in strength. But sour beers act a bit like a palate cleanser. So you can drop a sour beer in anywhere, and it breaks it up, and you can move on to a completely different taste profile. You'll still hopefully
The
taste
phrase
the
I
new
like
thing.
is that they are the sorbet of the beer world.
Yeah. So we just need to get it on the soft serve. No, actually, no.
Oh yeah.
So we do the quite a few of our sour beers at events. We put them on the soft serve machine, but usually we have to add vanilla syrup to it because the sourness really comes out.
And extra sugar. No,
Yeah.
Lots of extra sugar. And one thing this is not
Gone.
already lacking for is calories.
Yeah, it's not a diet taste in this one, thankfully. So Joe, what's the most exciting thing you think? What things have happened so recently in the sales team that's exciting?
Oh, lots of things. We've expanded the team massively, and we've now got greater coverage over the UK. So we're seeing greater beer sales. So, for example, was it last month? I forget where I am, but October was probably one of our busiest months ever. And I just felt there was steam coming off the keyboard at the speed I was having to process everything. I thought I was going to go absolutely explode.
I love it.
And I didn't realise, I was trying to work out what was different to when I first started. And it was only when I started looking at the figures, I was like, oh my God. You know, we jumped from a small number of couriers to like triple the size of couriers and deliveries and like tens of thousands of cans we were sending out. And I just suddenly was like, oh, right, that's why I'm feeling like my mind's blown.
I mean, to give that some context, I remember when and I doing the brewing back here, and if we got like a wholesaler and they'd take a pallet, maybe we'd do like 2 in a month. And
Do a little dance.
We're like, yes. And then I think 2 weeks ago we sent out 32 in a week. So
yeah,
it's quite a bit now.
And that's just the pallets.
That's just the pallets.
And that obviously helps moving from, so we still brew at the city centre where we're doing the tasting from now, but we tend to brew smaller batch cask beer here, and we're at the main production site in Osbaldwick on the outskirts. We do most of our kegged and canned beer, and we have a full-size yard where you can get a truck in and out of, which makes a huge difference when you're trying to transport beer. And then, the other few different things that have changed, and one reason in particular why October was busy. If you're watching this at home, you could be watching us on Christmas Day. We're drinking Christmas beers. You might be watching it more time appropriate, but it's the middle of November and we're drinking Christmas beer. But we brewed these beers, September time was it? Or had them packaged in September?
We brewed them in August. So the earliest recipient of these is our international wholesalers, and they want them in September. So that means we have to make the beer in August. So it's a very weird concept to be thinking about making something for Christmas in August.
And then October in the UK is when we really start packaging and shipping not packaging, but shipping these beers and getting them out to the wholesalers who then supply the bars and venues, and then the bottle shops who then supply you guys as well as our web store. So October is a bit crazy, and at least a third of the beer we sold, I think, in October was the Christmas beers. So it really accounts for a huge uptake in sales. So now the pressure is on to sell as much beer in November on the lead up to Christmas. And
I think we should give a big shout out to Sam, our export manager, who managed to ship 2 pallets of every single Christmas beer that we made to Norway. And that was a huge proportion of the overall batch.
Which is one of the reasons why we sold out of Nightmare of Brew York in Cannes pretty much the week it launched, because we hadn't factored that into our packaging schedule. So we packaged all the cans and almost all of it went straight out the door to Norway. We're, oh, God. And as hopefully you guys will see in the next beer we taste, it's really good. So, yeah. Spoiler alert.
And then the challenge of me having to try and find that beer to send out to people when none was shown in packaging.
Yeah.
So that was
our admin challenge. Well, not admin challenges, our system challenges when these little things happen.
Yeah. We've had a few questions come in, and I've only read the first one, but this one is for you, Joe. Do you prefer working in the bar or in sales?
They're both different. I miss all my lovely customers at Park.
Probably a loaded question from someone at Park.
Yeah, I made loads of great new friends who we're still in touch with, and my partner still works at Park, so we still have that link, and we still catch up with them from time to time. But I love the frenetic pace of working in sales and admin, and
it's manic at times.
I know, and I'm quite bossy, aren't I? So, and organised. So
and really shy and really retiring.
Yeah. So it suits me well. It suits me well.
What's the
next one? Do you want to do that one?
Which is your favourite version of Dreams over the past few years? That's from Matt.
That assumes you can remember them.
Yeah.
In fact, that assumes
that's
we can
that's a question for you, I think.
The first one, I think, just because it was quite a different.
Was it that the cherry and cranberry?
No, cherry was year 2.
Cherry was year 2. What was year 1 then?
I don't know, but I preferred that one. Mainly, it wasn't more. It was just because it was so different to what the other Christmas beers we were doing at the time, and we'd kind of discovered ourselves. It was when the year we did Katy Berry, so it was probably blueberry. But we'd done a few pastry sours for the first time that year and really enjoyed. Well, technically we'd done.
And suggestion off camera, it was cranberry and blackberry. If it wasn't that, it was certainly something similar to that.
But yeah, it was just so different to what we'd done for Christmas previously that it was really nice. And then last year we did the cherry and cranberry version. So
I love this one. Not a question, it's a statement. We love you, Joe. We love your ambition, and we're glad your ankle is better. And that's from Emma.
What we didn't mention was the fact that you were scootering everywhere at the point when you hurt your ankle. So we were walking to Leeds Beer Festival last year, and then Jo got a scooter out and she had toilet roll, and I rented the scooter because we'd run out of toilet roll somewhere, so she was scootering it across.
Oh wow, that's an image. Right. So, what would you say has been your Brew York beer of the last year then?
They had to indulge me on this one because
I've seen you've got 3.
I know. So it's hard to pick, isn't it? And it's mean to make me pick, I think, because there's so many fabulous beers, and you're so eclectic as a brewery. It's how do you choose? So I think I always wanted a strawberry beer, and as a brewery, you're pretty good at asking us as staff, what do we want to see? What have we got any suggestions? And I was always hounding you about either English hops, and it was not something that we could work with way back when.
He was allergic to English hops 2 years ago.
Well, it's the variability, isn't it, of the seasons and the being able to source them. But I was always asking, please, can I have a strawberry beer? So when we got the tea at the birthday party last year, it was one of my favourites, and I really, it was light, it was summery, and it was an occasion beer. So for summer, that was my choice.
And it's not that we, for the record, were adverse to working with strawberry. It's just a technically challenging flavour to work with. The flavour of strawberry is so interlaced with the sugar, and the sugar gets fermented by the yeast, that you put all this lovely strawberry in and you end up with something that doesn't remotely taste of strawberries, mostly. So what we did, as Joe was saying now, is we took a flavoured tea a tea that was flavoured like strawberry, so it had like kind of dried elements of strawberry. And I think it had little bits of coconut and things in, didn't it? So to give it kind of a creaminess as well. And it ended up tasting like very much like you know the little boiled sweets, the strawberries and cream. That's what this beer ended up tasting like.
Strawberry chewits as
and
well.
it was lovely, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I got my dream on that one. And then I, particularly, as I've said earlier, is hark back to the early days and I like a nice bitter. So the recent one about 100% pear rise, I had it the other day and it was right up my street. And I just think we don't often make a bitter, we make Maris. But you had your competition, didn't you, where one of you done a bit bitter.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'll give some context to that one. I suppose it's only appropriate that I do that one because that beer, 100% easy for me to say, pear rise, was to honour my late father who died almost 2 years ago to the day. Unfortunately during the pandemic period, although not related to COVID. And he always liked his bitter, much as when Dad still does. And they would both beg us to make a bitter, and we made Maris the Otter. And then we wouldn't always have it available, but they'd always beg us to bring it back. And every once in a while we'd humour them and bring it back. So we had a bit of an in-joke with my dad because we never paid my dad, but he was always here. He was the kind of guy that cleaned up after us, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah.
He'd be following you around the place with a brush because we were messy buggers. And he would tidy up after us all. And he'd always have this joke, you need to give me a pay rise. I was like, we don't pay you that. I was like, we'll give you 100% pay rise. But like 100% on nothing is still nothing. But he didn't care. It was just a little joke that he found some hilarity in because he was a dad and dads like shit jokes.
It was the, have your ears been lowered? Every time. Every time.
Yeah, you didn't go for a haircut, your ears were lowered. Yeah, that kind of thing. But yeah, it was just my little tribute to my dad, and it's 5.4%. It's absolutely at a strength that he would never have gone anywhere near. But yeah.
ESB.
And I genuinely think it's a great beer.
It is.
Irrespective of the context and why that beer exists. I do think it's a really, really nice beer.
It is really good, and if you can get your hands on it, I really recommend it.
I arrived here today, and what did I want, guys? I was like, I'll see you upstairs, I'm off to go and get a pint of that, and it's not on the bar. Yeah.
So we've got a lot of different cask beers at the moment. So we've been seeing that cask beer sales are on the rise. So it's been a part of the of our aim is to try and make more cask beer available, but we noticed when bars reopened after COVID that cask beer wasn't as popular on our bar when we first did, so we took our cask lines down from 10 to 6. I think it might be 7 at the moment. So we've reduced the number of cask lines we have downstairs in the tap room, and then now we're probably getting back to the original level of popularity for cask beer. So never say never, it might be worth putting some more cask beers but back downstairs.
Well, I would say this is an argument for that, definitely.
Because we've got so much variety at the moment. We've got Imperial Tom Cocoa in cask, and we haven't got it on in our bar. And I was like, when am I going to get to try that? And Michael, the chorus, told me it's on in POC at the moment. I was like, I'm not in POC, I want it here. So yeah, we've got loads of really good beer in casks, and we don't have enough lines to put them on. So we need to fix that.
So before you leave us, Joe, what has been your highlight of the last
Can I just say my final beer?
So you only let have 2 beers. Come on.
Come on,
Okay.
come on.
Everyone else is going to pick one, but you can have 3, Joe. Go on then.
I love the barrel aged stuff, and I thought it was a bit obvious to pick the barrel aged State of Mind, but they have been particularly good. But the Ghost side, Space side, Ghost Dimension, Space side.
Which is a collaboration with Fierce from our birthday the year
Last year.
before.
Yeah.
And it was a chili stout.
Chili
It's a
mole.
Mexican
Mole.
mole stout.
Yeah.
So it was made with kind of cocoa powder and 3 mulatto
3
and
different
chipotle
chilies.
and
Like-
habanero chilies and
Ghost chili in the end.
and topped up with ghost chilies. I remember being in the kitchen. Were any of you there at the time when I had that big drum in the kitchen and I was
Crying.
like macerating all these chilies and I had a mask on and everybody was like walking into the kitchen and just immediately turning around and walking back out because honestly the air was noxious that day. It was not pleasant.
But it's beautiful, it's well rounded, it's big mouthfeel, it's smooth, it's just
And a whiskey cask
unctuous.
as well.
But it's
Yeah.
a divisive thing in many ways because you've got all the spicing, That's enough to put many people off. You've got whiskey. Again, that's something else that people either love or they hate.
I hate whiskey,
Yeah.
but I love this.
But the fusion of
Yeah,
all
yeah.
of that in that one beer really, really
Yeah.
works. And we had a team get together this Monday just gone, where every 3 months we get the entire team together. We have a bit of a social reflection on the last 3 months, and it descends into drinking, food, and chaos.
On a Monday.
On a Monday, yeah. And we did a rundown on the highest rated beers according to Untapped in the most recent period. And the beer you've just named there was the highest rated beer that we've released in the last period. And for it to be all of those things, spicy, whiskey, very divisive flavours, and yet it was the thing that's rated the most highly. And I would agree with you, it deserves to be up there.
It's really cool.
Although we did have a fallout in our house, whether it was the tequila or the Speyside, we had to agree to differ.
Did you blend them? If you blend
Yeah,
them,
we
it's
did
pretty good
blend.
as well.
We did blend as well. Yeah.
So have we got any more questions? Because we are running a little bit behind, aren't we? So we might have to...
Can I just say that, Mike, you asked me about my highlight?
Oh, yeah,
My
sorry.
personal highlight. So my personal highlight is the opening of the Handley Tap. And if you haven't been, you need to get down there, which is on our Osbaldwick site. And the reason I'm saying that is because I live out in the sticks and there's no buses home. So we can't come out because of the buses. So, but Handley Tap, we can cycle to it, we can have a great night out, and we can get home on our bikes.
Plus, you can finish work and have a beer, and Michael
Yeah,
can
yeah.
join you there, and you
Yeah,
And
don't have to go
that's,
far.
that was Jo auditioning for her next role after the sales role. She plans to move into the marketing. Okay.
Anything else? Well, let's have a round of applause then for Jo. Joanna, because Jo's
you.
the London sales guy next.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
And whoever bet on Wayne
Ah!
has lost
Have I won the
once,
wheat
'cause
steak?
I'm,
Oh, that's
I'm
yours,
going
isn't it?
first.
No, you can.
And that's a rarity. I don't usually win this, but I don't know how I've won it today. So beer number 3, as Ant is passing around at the moment, is Nightmare of Brew York. We mentioned earlier about how it's an imperial version of last year's Fairytale of Brew York. So 9.2%, oh sorry, 9.8%, not 9.2. Gingerbread Imperial Milk Stout. So very, very cool beer. One of my favourites that we brewed last year. So I'm really looking forward to trying this. So while I do, let me bring the next guest on, who is Admiral Lord Diggleton. No, it's James Digby, from our bar team and our tour team. So if you want to book an event in Brew York, you'll usually end up speaking to Digby. And
Yeah, I'm the tour team in the sense that I am the person that does the tours.
with
the whole department.
with a reserve.
I do have Ben who also does the tours. Yeah.
So welcome to the tasting. I'm just trying to find you your beer. It's one of these.
Thank you.
I don't have a glass for you, so you might have to just swig it.
Not fancy.
Ant will give you a glass shortly.
Thank you.
So I mentioned the beer, but while we're all pouring that beer and having a little bit of a taste of that, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do for us at Brew York?
So I started as bar staff almost exactly 3 years ago. As Wayne pointed
More than
out.
that now.
Yeah, it was November the 5th, I think, was my 3rd anniversary of working here. I started as bar staff, and then just after COVID, I was promoted to bar and tour supervisor. So I started doing the tours as well as being the bar supervisor. And then about, I want to say 6 months ago,
Yeah,
a little
something
beyond
like-
6
something
months
like
ago, I was promoted or sideways promoted to bars events co-ordinator. Which is a fancy way of saying I organise the piss-ups in this brewery.
And we're in your room now, aren't we?
Yes, this is the newly renovated tasting room, because in addition to doing the tours and organising all the private event bookings that happen in this room and our other room, I have started to do the tastings. Some of the tastings, not the YouTube lives. That's your guys. You guys do the YouTube lives. But so we do some private tastings. We've done some tastings of the barrel-aged beers, some off-site tastings at other venues in York, which have been going quite well. I've got one on Sunday.
Is this
at Hop
O'Clock?
Yeah,
so Julie and
fully
Jimmy's
sold
place.
out. Don't even try to get tickets. It's sold
But
out.
you'll be tasting these beers anyway.
But yeah, but so I do those as well, and so my job is mostly to organise people getting drunk in a brewery, and then also to drink and talk about and sell beer.
Sounds terrible.
It's awful. It's awful. I have the best job at Brew York. It's amazing.
Responsible drinking in a brewery.
Yeah, no. Responsible drinking in a brewery. Don't drink to excess. It's bad for you. But yeah, basically when I started as the supervisor, because I was doing the tours as well, I took over doing the events in this venue because it made sense. Because often when people book a private party, they also want to book a room. And then it got to the point it started to pick up until about 6 or 7 months ago, the director of the bars just went, "Do you just want to do that full time? Because you seem a little stressed." Seems like quite a lot of work. So since the summer, I have been booking in all of the events. I've been booking in the tastings, the private events, and obviously we're now running into Christmas, which is probably our busiest time of year for events. And we've got something like 40 room bookings between now and the end of the year, either in here or in our other space downstairs in the Hoptail Lounge.
And that's so far. We're only mid-November.
Yeah, no, that is so far. I've had today alone, I've had 6 more inquiries. So it's fun though. I basically get to talk to people and convince them to buy our beer on this site and convince them to give me lots of money to rent out the room. So it's really, really good.
It's funny because quite a few people, because we go to do events, we do a lot of them here. Like Digby said, he does a few of them in other venues outside, in and around York now, and we do lots of them throughout the country at different venues we supply. And someone said to me once, it must be really difficult to talk in front of people. I said, it is if you talk about something you don't understand or don't know, but we just talk about something we love. We talk about beer. So we are just talking to you about something that we're passionate about. So it's not that difficult to do. And once you've had a couple of beers, it gets even easier to do. So,
up until the point.
Up until the point where you can't hear us.
And you start to ramble a little bit. The brewery tours are the sort of first public presenting bit I did for Brew York. And I'm not a brewer. I don't have a background in brewing. I do a lot of home brewing, but mainly I home brew mead and cider. I pretend to be a Viking on the weekends, so the mead makes sense.
And it's really strong. So.
Yes, about 12% was my last batch. So I got trained by Lee to do the brewery tours, because the brewers used to do the brewery tours. But it is absolutely my favourite bit of my job, is for about 25% of all the hours I work, I'm stood in front of a group of people talking to them about beer. I've got a master's degree. I'm a complete waste of a university education, but I talk about beer for a living, so it's fine. But yeah, it's absolutely my favourite. And I say it to every tour I do. I'm just like, if you've got any questions, ask questions. I get more out of this if you ask me questions. If I start to ramble on a bit, do pull me back, because I will ramble on a bit.
Sounds very
I was going to say,
Yeah.
apart from that last bit, you'd never tell someone to stop, pull you back if you're rambling on. You just keep going.
They used to pay for a 1 hour tour and they get 2 hours out of it.
Oh yeah. To be fair, I have changed the time on the website to say between 60 and 90 minutes, and I now factor that in, because if it's a tour with a lot of questions and I get going, I need the 90 minutes, and I eventually have to get to the end and say, like, guys, I do have another tour in like 20 minutes, so I am going to have to stop. But it's by far my favourite bit of my job.
So one of the things that
I absolutely loved doing that. And I miss it. It's only because my schedule's too hectic now to be able to accommodate that.
So one of the things that when we started doing the tours, myself and Lee did pretty much everything. So brewed the beer, sold the beer, did everything, and then ran the bar on the weekends, and then did the tours.
Wrote the theme tune.
Yeah, exactly. And I'd be on the bar, and Lee would be doing a tour, and it'd take all the customers. So when we first opened, the tap room wasn't that busy, and there'd be like 15, 20 people on the tour. And Lee's waffling onto them for 2 hours, and I'm like, get them back here so I can sell them some beer.
Everything accounted. I'm giving them the best customer experience ever.
And I'm seeing
get them back to the bar.
I'm just seeing people sat there thinking, looking like they want a drink. So I'm like, come on, get them back here. So we always did samples on the tour. So a lot of breweries tours we used to visit ourselves as customers. That you'd go on a 1 hour tour of the building or 45-minute tour of the building, or you start or finish with a beer. Like, well, I want a beer throughout the whole thing while they're talking to you, while I'm learning about the process. And then you can talk to me about the beer itself, not just about what's happening here. So we've always had the tasting samples are part of the process. So it does unfortunately mean you have to have it in a polycarb glass, because you can't take glass into the brewing area.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
And I would say, James, that we select the drinks that you would consume based on how we can demonstrate different parts of the process.
Absolutely. So, I mean, with 3 of them, it's not as important. The one I find that's really, really important, and if I get my timings right, which doesn't always happen, because if they're busy at the bar and they're trying to pour 20 third pint samples, and try and get them round to me and whatever. But on a good tour, I'll start talking about the way we make our sour beers in the kettle with kettle souring, and the sour beer will come round the corner and it's timed perfectly. But it's useful having the beers actually in hand, because then people go, oh, they'll spawn more questions from them, because they'll think, oh, so this beer tastes like this, or the rhubarber Streisand, it tastes like, so when do you add the fruit, or so what's the difference between this and the pale ale we just had? And having something in your hand to talk about engages people a little bit more. And the worst tours are the ones where nobody's engaged, where people still go, oh yeah, it's very interesting.
The stag do's and the hen parties.
The stag do's they're the worst, which is why we don't do them anymore.
You get two people who actually who like beer, and they take all their mates on a stag do because there's alcohol provided, but it's only two people who actually care about the tour.
Yeah.
And because of that, the rest of them ruin the tour for anyone else who's.
I remember doing one hen do, and we've got kind of a dividing wall between the bar and the brewery, and there was this lady. She was like, she went and stood at the wall, and she started screaming at the bar, can somebody bring us some wine? I was like, "This really?"
No. I get that question semi-regularly. I get the emails in from the bookings. They're like, oh, well, a couple of my mates don't really drink beer. Could you swap out their beer samples for wine on the tour? I'm like, no. We don't make wine, we make beer. But to come, I mean, you mentioned earlier when you were talking to Joe that sometimes, if you're trying to get people who don't like beer into beer, and I find with the beers that I use, particularly the sour, and often our stouts as well, I normally go with Toncoco. At the moment, I'm using Fairytale because it's Christmas. But people go, oh, I don't normally like stouts, but that's really good. Or I don't really like beers, I'm normally more of a cider person, but the Goose Willis is really, really good. And it gets people in, and they sort of say, I've never really tried craft beer before, but this is amazing.
I love doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, you can take the low road, you can make it easy, you can pick the beers that you think everyone's going to like. But James is absolutely right there. It's so much more fun to pick the beers where some of them are going to love it, some of them you're absolutely going to disgust, but some of them you're going to convert them.
Yeah.
And that makes our job worthwhile.
It's so good when people go, oh, this is amazing, and then you see them after the tour, and they're sat in the bar, I got one of these, I asked them, I got one of these, it's amazing, I'm just like, ha ha ha, it worked. You're ours now.
Just before we talk a little bit more about the day job, I mentioned briefly Nightmare of Brew York, easy for me to say. You'd hope so.
Have we done that thing of not talking about the
No. While you were off for the first wee of the session, by the way.
Yeah, I had a feeling I wasn't going to live that
So
one down.
9.8%. We mentioned 9.8% gingerbread milk stout, but we didn't say anything else about the beer and how we make it the way it is. So do you want to talk us a little bit about the grain, I guess?
Yeah, so I think if we maybe talk about the concept of an imperial IPA in the first place, so they originally were called doubles. So a double basically means if you've got a normal beer, so let's say Fairytale, and you wanted to make a double version, a stronger version, what the double means is to take twice the amount of grain, therefore twice the amount of sugar, and in theory you're going to get twice the amount of alcohol. It doesn't quite work like that because the yeast gets a little bit stressed and some of the sugar is not fermentable, so you'd usually end up with an alcohol level that's slightly less than that. These days there are kind of like style guidelines, and to call something a particular thing you have to be within particular parameters. We play a little bit faster links with those kind of things because that kind of cuts back on your creativity.
Yeah. That's the questions you often get on the tours is, what's the rules around this? And my response is always, there are some guidelines.
The rules is there ain't no rules.
There ain't no rules, we do what we like, it's the Wild West.
The rules really only apply if you wanted to enter a beer into a competition, then they're going to measure those things, and then it does need to apply. But if you're just trying to make a beer to please people, do what you want. Yeah. It doesn't matter. But we've, I guess, gone a little bit more back to the traditional way, where it was probably more than twice the amount of malt, because what we targeted was twice the amount of alcohol. So the original beer was 4.9, we've gone for 9.8 with this. It doesn't mean we necessarily use the same selection of cereal grains, depends on what we're trying to do with the beer. This one we've gone for the gingerbread thing, so we need it to be a little bit more biscuity, so we're going to select different types of cereal grains. They're going to kind of emphasize that kind of bready or biscuity type character, and then we've used like a ginger extract and some vanilla, I think, in this one to create that character.
Very much.
And I like this as a standard strength beer. I love this as an imperial beer.
tastes
This is
like
really good.
Molasses and brown sugar. So
Yeah.
it tastes like gingerbread with brown sugar on it, like the sweetness in it.
And I don't recall, did we put any brown sugar on this one, Tom? Do you remember?
On the spot, come on.
Completely on the spot. Have you got Brew on your phone? Look at that now.
Back in August now. So,
Yeah, I think we.
In the middle of summer when you were brewing the...
It wouldn't be unusual for us to
Christmas
put
beer.
some dark sugars in the big beer, though, would
No,
it?
it wouldn't. No. And, yeah, it's good. It's again, it like I said earlier, it's changed.
I mean, I don't know if Pete did, but he might have to put his little microphone. He has a little microphone built into his mixing deck now, so you have to say that again.
Yeah, like I said,
fancy.
these beers change a huge amount. So when we kind of make these beers at the tail end of summer to get ready for export, this is really different. What was super kind of well, we've got last year's Fairytale is available as well.
I'll tell you what about
Yeah.
Plug.
Available is a strong word.
Apparently Tom also wants to work in our marketing department.
So,
But no, this no, it's a banger of a beer. It's well, I don't know. When we come round to the final beer of the evening, that's still
No spoilers.
still my favourite one.
So-
Yeah,
Sorry, before you go on. So there is a very, very famous stout across in the US that is known to be ginger like this. Hardywood's
Hardywood,
gingerbread
yeah.
stout, and it is so good. And I think we're close. I don't
Yeah.
think we've done a bad job with this.
so our,
In fact, I'm going to go on further. I'd rather drink that.
because it's free for you.
You're the accountant, not me.
So
It's an excellent beer, to be fair.
our head of on-trade, so the guy in our sales team who sells to other pubs.
Oh, Luke. Used to
Luke,
work there, didn't he?
we poached him from Hardywood. He used to be their UK sales rep, and he won us over because he used to come and see us and give us bottles of Hardywood gingerbread stout to encourage us to buy it for our venue.
Yeah.
He didn't just give us 3 bottles of Hardywood stout all the
But
time.
I mean, one, this stuff's rare in the UK.
Yeah.
2, it's going to be like 20 quid a bottle, and he's like,
There you go, mate. Well,
Okay then.
gingerbread
oh,
stout.
we can do that.
So yeah, really cool beer. I'm really pleased with how this one's turned out. And as our head brewer alluded to, we rebrewed the last year's Fairytale. So we don't usually do that. We only have Fairytale in the new version usually, but we rebrewed 2021's gingerbread 4.9% version because Morrison's asked us if we could do a version for them this year. And if we'd have just sold them the Stollen version of Fairytale, all the other independent bottle shops and venues in the country wouldn't have wanted to buy it because if you can buy it in a supermarket, why would they?
Yeah.
Why would they want to stock it? So we decided to bring back the last year's edition. So a little bit confusing because if you see it in Morrison's, it just says Fairytale Brew York. We didn't put a year on it because it's obviously not 2021 anymore, so we didn't want to confuse people that way. And then the version, the latest one says Fairytale
So,
Brew
yeah,
York
so technically
2022.
we did 5 this year.
Yeah,
That means we
Christmas
have to do
beers.
6 next year.
So if you do like the gingerbread version, you want to try, and you didn't try last year's, it's a once it's gone deal in Morrison's. So as soon as they've sold it, they won't be getting any more. So if you do see it, I think it's about £3 a can, so it's a
That's
really
not bad.
reasonable price as well.
Yeah.
So if you like it, give it a try. And we had a quick audience question.
It's a really nice beer. Does it have to be 9.8?
Yes.
So the audience question, does it have to be 9.8? So
I believe Wayne's just given you the answer. That one. If you want a half-strength version, go to Morrison's.
yeah, and again, that's if you would have tasted this last year and you'd have thought, oh, I really like that, and I wonder what it'd taste like if it was stronger. Then you get to try it this year, and then next year you get to try the barrel aged version. So it's quite nice. If you do find one you like, then you can follow it along. If you don't like it, then you're screwed because you got it for 3 years.
Indeed. And I suppose ginger, as much as I think everybody we know likes it, again, it can be a little bit Marmite. There are a few people that don't get into ginger. So, right, questions. First one for you, James.
So weird. Do
Why am I
many people
calling
call
you
you
James?
James?
Why are you call? Yeah, I mean,
Because we're on camera.
Digby. Why am I calling
So
you
for those who don't know, and those who are watching, my name is James Digby. For some reason, I've never been known by my first name. My name is Digby, but I still feel like in emails and stuff, I still feel compelled to put James. So occasionally customers will come and say, "Oh, we're looking for James," and the bar staff will just go, "Who?" It's like, that beardy guy looks like a Viking. It's like, "Oh yeah, Digby, he's over there." But normally everyone at Brew York, this is
Otherwise known as my body double.
this is the other thing. I get about twice a week, I would estimate. About twice a week, someone goes, "You're one of the owners, aren't you?" I'm like, "No, you're thinking of Lee. He's the bigger, blonder version of me." And it happened in my corner shop
He knows
the
who
other
his
day.
boss is.
It happened in my corner
So the
shop.
actual answer is, do you mean the fatter older one?
I would never. But the fact that I walked into my corner shop the other day, a few weeks ago, or months ago now actually, and said, "You were in the paper." And I was like, "I guarantee you I wasn't." And it was a local press story about Brew York. And there's a picture of you two.
Well, they used the stock photo from 2016,
Yeah.
which is why they're probably
geez.
mistaken.
And I was like, "That's not me, that's my boss." And I'm getting to the point now where I'm just going to go, yes, I am Lee, one of the owners of Brew York. It's just going to get me any free stuff.
I have actually encouraged you to do
Yeah,
that because occasionally I get free beer. So you really should try and milk
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
He means from in here. Occasionally they give them.
No, well, yeah, in other places.
Question.
Not that often, admittedly, but occasionally it happens. So, for you, Digby,
There we go.
have you had any groups on your tours that are not well behaved?
Stag do's. I would say that 50% of the time stag do's are great because they are often a little bit boisterous and they've got a lot of banter, but I can handle that. That's fine. I can handle people being a bit funny, they're having a good time. They might have had a drink beforehand, that's fine. The other 50% of the time, they're just a nightmare because, as Wayne alluded to earlier, you get 2 or 3 people who are actually interested in the brewery tours. And then the rest of them are just really battered when they arrive, or they are just not interested. And so about 3 weeks ago, I had one of the worst tours I've ever had to run because they booked under... When you book, it says we do not accept bookings from stag do's. I've just knocked it on the head and said no. And they booked under a 6, a 6, and a 4 to disguise the fact they were all one group. I've been a barman for a while now, and I can spot a stag do a mile away. But I was in a reasonably good mood.
Fancy dress gives it away.
To be fair, they ditched the fancy dress and they said, "Oh no, we're a 30th birthday or 35th birthday or whatever," and I was in a reasonably good mood, so I gave them the benefit of the doubt. Terrible decision. That tour started with 20 people on it, 16 of whom were the stag do, 4 of whom were a father and his son and a couple who were great and put up with a lot of rubbish. There were meant to be 2 other people, a couple of ladies who came on the tour. They were waiting outside the front with the stag do and decided, no. So that stag do owe me 20 quid because I refunded those tickets because I was like, no, I know normally I wouldn't refund on the day, but that's fair. I wouldn't have wanted to come on that tour. I started that tour with 20 people and I finished with 9 because some of them decided they just weren't interested and left. Fair enough. I'm not going to miss you. One of them spent a good 5-10 minutes with his back to me in the middle of the semicircle around when I'm talking. And I said, "Mate, if you're going to stand with your back to me, at least stand at the back or outside." He was like, "Oh, I was just watching those fellas leave." I was like, "Yeah, but that was rude as well." Yeah. And then about 15 minutes after that, he and 3 or 4 of them, or 5 of them actually, were talking. And I said, "Lads, do you want to wait outside, please?" And they were like, "Oh, no, we're paying attention. It's like, I wasn't asking. I was being polite, and that was one of the worst tours I've ever had to run.
When I did these tours years ago, we learned that lesson a long time ago. There is no such thing as a well-behaved stag do.
Yeah.
The amount of different people that would contact us and say, "We're not that kind of stag do. We're all middle-aged professionals. We're not
I'm sorry,
gonna be
it
like
makes
that."
no difference.
And for the first time, you believe them. Second time, you're an idiot. Third time, you're banned.
Yeah.
That's it. We just
no,
don't do
and
it.
I've done. I mean, like I say, sometimes I had one a few weeks ago that was really good, but I sort of insisted that I said, "Look, you guys have said to me you're a stag do. I know a couple of you, some friends I knew vaguely from growing up in York, and I said, I know a couple of you, so I'm going to reiterate, it's like, I will do this because you're my friends, I'm doing you a favour, but I am asking you to pay for every ticket on the tour, even though there's only 17 of you. I am not subjecting anyone else to this." And actually, that was a really good tour because they'd clearly gone around all of their mates and said, "We need to behave. I know it's a stag do, but we need to behave." And they were boisterous and they had a lot of banter, but they were really engaged. They were asking me a lot of questions and it was a lot of fun. But it was a case of, right, I have to be really, really strict here. And I say, like, no. And unless I know you, I'm just going to say no.
But you also sorted out the on that tour the 4 people who were unfortunately stuck with the stag do. You did a private thing for those.
Yeah, so after the end of that, the really, really bad one, I basically did all the bits that I would do if the tour's got a lot of questions, and they did. And one of them was saying, one of the guys was just saying, how much do they pay you for this? And I was like, not enough. 100% pay rise, please. Yeah. But I was just like, guys, do you want, I know we're running a bit late here. If you've not got anything else to do, I'll do an extra bit of the tour. We'll go through some stuff, we'll chat, we'll have some questions, because you didn't deserve that. You deserve a good tour. And they were really, really lovely. And it was nice. With a 4-person tour, just those guys talking and had a lot of questions. We'd all bonded over the horrible experience that was that bloody stag do. The tour finished and they'd managed to annoy our assistant manager, Jesse, by being quite rude, messing with the furniture, trying to open doors to places they weren't supposed to go. So the tour finished and Jesse was just like, well, they're not coming in for a drink. So it's just, since then, I've doubled down on my no. I don't care how well behaved you think you are. It's just not worth it.
Yeah, and that is the challenge in hospitality, especially this time of year where obviously we are a business. We do want people to come in and spend some money, but we also want people who are here to enjoy themselves and come back. So sometimes it's better to turn people away so the people who are here to enjoy have a good time, because it just takes one idiot to be screaming and shouting for an hour, and then it just ruins everyone else's experience. So, and
with regular customers or semi-regular customers, it is worth it to turn away. Oh, we're going to spend a few hundred quid in here. It's like, yeah, it's a Saturday night, mate. We'll probably be fine. Yeah. We'll turn them away, and I'd much rather someone goes away and said, oh yeah, they chucked out a stag do for bad behaviour, and because realistically, that's going to go, oh, I want to go and drink there. Yeah. Then they keep out the bad groups.
Well, what's the new posters we just put up? We just put some new posters up.
Be nice or leave. Yes. On the walls of the bar now, we have reiterated our policy. A lot of bars have them, just the code of conducty thing. Ours are a little bit more blunt. They just say be nice or leave. And it's a case of someone's being a bit aggy with you and you go, don't make me tap the sign. I'll tap the sign.
I love you, Digby.
Oh, thank you, Ross.
So we got a good one here from Martin. What snacks are you guys eating? Not as many as we'd like because we've got a microphone attached to it.
Since you've asked,
we've got some snowflake pretzels.
Ninja stars. I'm surprised we haven't thrown them into the audience yet.
We've got some trees that look like they were made with beetroot.
So they're all Christmassy. And
apparently they're chicken and stuffing flavoured crisps.
They're quite nice. They're little Christmas tree tortillas.
My next one is not a question. It says, James sorted a table for us recently. He's a top bloke. And that's from Melinda.
Thank you.
Who's James?
Yeah, Digby sorted.
Yeah, obviously you didn't introduce yourself properly on this occasion.
Take a question from the back there.
So I'd say, like, on the classic example of somebody who used to say that I didn't really like beer, and I actually think I was converted through Brew, trying like a sour kind of thing. So my question is, what percentage would you think that you've converted, like on a tour sort of thing, like when they've said at the beginning, oh, do you know what, I'm not sure I'm that into it, but I'll give it a go, and then at the end they're like, actually, yeah, really into this now.
Before you answer that, I have to do one thing. So we just had a question from off camera, which was talking about how people are converted to craft beer, and you were saying that pleasingly you'd been converted to Brew York. And then you've directed a question to Digby, asking how many people does he think he has converted on the brewery tours? So just for the audience at home, not everyone would get it otherwise.
The percentage of people on each tour varies, because sometimes I'll get a lot of people on the tour, they're already big fans, they already know us, they're all craft beer heads. On a good tour, though, so I did one earlier today, we had 10 people on it. It was, half of them were, or 4 of them were all, for group of 4, they all loved craft beer. The other 6 were 3 couples, and the blokes were the guys who were into the beer, and they were with their wives, and to their credit, like, the wives were all like, oh no, we don't normally drink beer, but they tried the Rhubarber Streisand, for example, and were like, oh, this is actually very, very drinkable. This is really, really nice. And I was like, yes, Yes, it is. But there's always at least one. Even on a small tour which isn't fully booked out, there's always at least one who will say something like, "I don't normally drink sours, but this one's really good," or "Oh, Stout's a bit intimidating for me, but this is actually very, very drinkable." The Toncoco is great for it. Toncoco is amazing because people go, "Oh, I hate coconut." Yeah, sometimes, my mum said the same thing actually about Toncoco. My mum's a white wine lady, but she's always said, Guinness always disappointed me because Guinness looks like it should be sweet and milky and creamy and chocolatey, and it doesn't taste that way. And then when I started working here, before I started working here, I brought her in and I was like, try the Toncoco. She's like, "Oh, that tastes like a Bounty bar." And I was like, "Yes, it does. This is amazing." She doesn't drink it, but she did admit that she liked it. But there's always at least one person on every tour who goes...
Some win there, I suppose.
Yeah. I'll get her on the Nightmare of Brew York 2022.
Yeah, I mean, if I could get hold of any.
Yeah, good shout actually.
I mean, the availability of it, I've got, like I mentioned earlier, I've got this tasting at Hop O'Clock, which is a local beer shop just down the road.
Jimmy and Julia.
Shout
out to the guys.
Great little beer shop, absolutely amazing. I've got this little tasting there, and I wasn't necessarily aware of how our supply issue around Nightmare was, because I primarily work at our Warmgate site. I'm not based at Hanley, I'm primarily based here because the vast majority of my work takes place here. And so I messaged various people in the Hanley team just being like, "Oh, can I have some Nightmare?" And the best response I got was from Waters, and he was just like, just laughing at me in the chat, just like, "No." But we repackaged some, and I finally managed to get some. Yeah. Yeah, and Joe got me it. I messaged Joe saying, "It's being repackaged, can I have some?" And it got delivered this morning, and I have threatened the bar team under pain of death. If anyone so much as thinks of touching it, I will throw them into the river.
It was amusing because Hop O'Clock's, if you've not been there, you should go. It's a really cool little bottle shop.
Really lovely little bottle shop.
Just up the road. If you go straight up Warmgate and Fossgate.
Direct line
directly opposite.
down from
next to Barnett's.
And they have 6 different beer lines pouring at any time, and then very small, so you can fit maybe 10 people in. But when they do a tasting, they cram, I think, an extra 10 people in.
Yeah, so it's a tiny little shop. It's maybe a quarter of the size of this room. They've sold 16 tickets. I may well be borrowing some stools on Sunday from here because I don't think they've got enough seats. But I'm very looking forward to it. Apparently it's sold out in an hour.
Yeah. It's really cool, and I drink in there quite a lot, so I like to pop in and say hello to them. And it's really interesting as well because people assume that because we have a brewery, we only drink in places that sell our beer. Jimmy and Julia stock the best beer that you can't necessarily get in York.
Yeah.
So there's not necessarily any reason why they would stock Brew York, because you can walk a few hundred yards down the road and buy it from us. So why would they stock it? But they do get some of our limited run specials in, and it's not just about that. It's about supporting independent businesses. It's about them actually being really good at what they do.
Not just our beer you wouldn't expect to get there. I think what they do really well is they research what the local bar scene has and they make sure that they have something different to offer.
Exactly.
So you wouldn't be able to get their beer in Trembling beer in Trembling Matters. You won't be able to get that kind of beer here. They're going to have something completely unique. And beyond that, they are goddamn lovely.
They are lovely people. Exactly. I've talked to Jimmy. They come in for the quiz on a Sunday. I've talked to Jimmy and Julia a lot. Julia does some shifts for us, and they always say when I go and have a drink there, it's like I always direct people to them. When they say, "Oh, where else is in York is good to drink?" I always say, "Check out Hop O'Clock, they're great." And Jimmy always says, "Oh, well, we always send people your direction." It's just like, if the beer scene in York is better, it's better for everyone.
Yeah.
And they are just lovely people, and they deserve to do well.
There's enough business to go out for everyone. How many people go out and do one venue?
Yeah. Well, that's the funny thing. Earlier, when we ask these guys, and we're going to ask Digby in a second, what your favourite beer of the year of the year was for us. That's all well and good, but you're going to drink more than one beer when you go out. Yeah. so that's why Joanna was a little bit greedy and chose 3. But yeah, I can't think of many of us who just drink one beer on a night out. But yeah, the final bit on Hop O'Clock is so popped in, having a beer on maybe a Sunday. I like to go out for a drink on Sunday in York. Having a chat with them, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Digby's coming up to do a tasting." I was like, "Oh cool, when's that?" "Oh, in a couple of Sundays' time, we're doing the Christmas beers." I was like, have you ordered any of them yet? And they're like, no, I'm thinking he's going to sort that out. I was like, you might
I
want
did.
to.
I did. I sorted it by
But
hook,
we got
crook,
there
and
with it, yeah.
theft. I did have to go and ask the House of Trembling Madness very, very nicely if we could have a couple of our cans of Barrel Aged Nightmare back. But I have the beer. It's downstairs in the shop. If anyone touches it, I will throw them into the river. But yeah, we have the beer. It's all sorted.
Awesome. So go on then. Tell us what the beer of the year for you is. Brew your beer of the year.
The Nitro Imperial Toncoco.
Which is on draft now.
It is on draft now. It's really, really good. Imperial Toncoco is one of my favourite dark beers, and the Nitro version just gives it that smoothness and creaminess and drinkability.
And we did that at the tail end of the last YouTube last Friday.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was last.
My God, it was good.
It's so good.
Am I allowed to say that about our own beer?
Yes, of course you are.
That's all we talk about.
I mean, you pay me to sell stuff. But yeah, no, I think I generally prefer stouts on cask. I find that the lack of carbonation and the slightly higher temperature that it's served at benefits the creaminess and the smoothness, particularly when we're doing what we do, which is sweet stouts. I generally prefer stouts on cask. And I think the Nitro line, even though it is obviously keg, gives it some of that smoothness and some of that creaminess that really just makes it like drinking liquid
if
cake.
I could do a little bit of sciencey stuff on that.
Before you do, just pause and hold that thought, because we've got a little bit more to get through. But Ant's managed to get himself a really difficult task. So he's going to join us for the next beer, which is actually a draft beer. And I'm just thinking, how on earth is Ant going to get us that draft beer and join us on camera? He's sorted it. He's okay. Sorry. Yeah.
He's already nailed
Trust-
it.
9 o'clock. Oh, got 10 minutes. 10
Trust
minutes.
the bar
He's
staff.
delivered it. He's getting it right.
You
Did somebody say just eat?
you employ some very, very, very talented bar staff. They'll sort you. It's fine.
Right. So going back to Imperial Toncoco Nitro version. So the reason a beer like that tastes especially creamy beyond our brewing talent is the use of nitrogen.
Yes.
The nitrogen bubbles, as you find in Guinness, are smaller than CO2 bubbles, and they kind of, when they roll across your tongue, they feel like cream. So some of it is about the kind of texture of the beer. Some of it is about the actual just bubbles that are in the beer, and those nitrogen things give this really kind of like creamy, luxurious, silky kind of feel across the tongue. And that's the nitrogen in the beer. And it, in a way, it also makes it feel thicker somehow.
Yeah. It gives it a nice, smooth, creamy thickness. I absolutely love the Nitro Imperial. It's so good.
It's a good shout. Very good shout.
So we did. Right now, there's a festival going on, a brewery called Anspach and Hop Day in London. So if you don't know who they are, they're a really cool brewery in not far from where Tom used to work on the Bermondsey Beer Mile.
Your old neighbours. Yep.
One of the things they did, 18 months ago, they brought out a beer. No, probably less than that. But brought out a beer called London Black, which was their equivalent of Guinness. It's a really nice stout, but it's a nitrogenated stout. And they put a lot of time, effort, and marketing into promoting that beer and realising that Guinness had no real craft competition. So they spent a lot of time and effort doing that, and managed to pick up a lot of fixed permanent lines throughout the country, but mainly in London. So a really good business decision, and they've managed to refine their process and really improve what they've done there. And we've dabbled in nitro. We've done a few, and we've done some really good job of nitro in keg, but we've always struggled to do it in can, because our canning line isn't that good. It's not good enough to really do that style beer.
Replicate it properly.
So we've kind of paused our canned versions of nitrogen beer. But
Until we're willing to spend somewhere between 30 and 60,000 that it would require to inject liquid nitrogen into a beer, we're not going to be doing that again.
That's quite expensive.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we have, however, been mastering the art of doing it on keg.
Yeah.
And I think we're getting pretty damn good at it now.
So the guys at Anspach had tasted a couple of our previous nitrogen beers, liked them, liked what we were doing, and we're good friends with those guys anyway. So they said to us, we're going to do a nitro festival in London in November. Do you want to be part of it? We're like, yeah, that sounds cool. And then they didn't get in contact for us for about 2-3 months after that, and then it was, we've got a month to go. We're like, oh shit, we've got to turn around a couple of nitrogen beers.
And me and Tom are like, shit, what can we nitro? Has to be something we've already got in tank.
So they kindly shared with us the technique they've been using for London Black, which is very different to how we were nitrogenating beer before, but the results have been a lot more consistent than we were getting previously. So they've shared a little nugget of information with us that's really helped to think in our process, and that's
It really has. the process that we were following and Tom and I had kind of been trained to do, it's completely counterintuitive to that process. Yeah, I think we can say the results speak for themselves. We're getting better results doing it, aren't we?
Yeah, it's very cowboy the way they do it, but it works.
I won't repeat that one on camera. So if you didn't at home, Tom off camera said he really loves the way that they do it, and it's had great results.
That's basically what he said. That's basically what he said.
An audience mic for next time.
Yeah.
We've got a spare one.
I think that was maybe evidence of why we don't need an audience for next time.
But yeah, they've really helped, they shared their technique with us, which shows part of why our industry is great. We all are technically in competition, but we love working together. We love working and helping each other do things better, because we want to sell more beer than macro breweries. So if we can do good nitro and less people are buying Guinness and more people are buying the nitro versions we do, then we're all winning.
Well,
Sorry, Jim. I'm going James again.
Sorry, Jimmy.
Digby.
Stop it.
I'm trying to be too formal.
So
Sorry,
posh.
But yeah, it's, like you're saying now, it's a concept that most people from other industries find completely alien. We are talking about our local competition, yet if they say we've had this problem, what did you do about it? We would immediately tell them. We want to buy this kind of thing. Have you bought this kind of thing before?
Yeah.
Where did you go to? Who did you talk to? Oh, it was these guys. There you go. Because as Wayne has very rightly said there, we don't care, because we all have one common enemy, and our common enemy is macro beer.
Yeah.
If we can knock Heineken, John Smith, any of that utter crap off the bar,
Budweiser off the winter.
we all collectively win.
So I just made a little passing joke to Lee then. So in York at the moment, the Christmas market, I referenced it earlier.
Yeah.
It started on Thursday, and they've opened the new winter hut. So it's replaced the teepee that used to be there in previous years. And it's a giant alpine lodge in the centre of York.
Two-story thing that they built in the square. It's amazing.
We met with the organisers quite a few months back, and we talked to them about. They said, "Oh, could you do a bespoke beer for us for the festival?" And we said, "Well, yeah, but we could also do the whole bar for you for the festival." And like, "Oh, well, Budweiser are lined up to do that, and they'll pay for it all to happen." And I'm like, "Well, why are you talking to them? We're from York. We will do you a local beer. We will deliver it from York. We will make sure that we fulfil everything you guys need any day of the week. The macro breweries won't do that for you.
We're a couple of 100 metres away.
And can you guys do that?" Well, yeah, of course we can. We've always wanted to work close with you guys.
Yeah.
You've never given us the chance. We'll prove to you why you don't need a macro brewery. And yeah, it's only a couple of days in, so it's way too early to say, but it's been great to actually work hand in hand with them from the start this time, put the bar facilities in, and to go in and see. Obviously, we're very, very biased, but to see a local product on in there across all the lines is really, really
Their
cool.
concern was, and I understand where their concern is coming from, their concern was people are going to walk into their new, unusual, eclectic venue, and they're going to say, "Where's my Peroni? Where's my Foster's? Where's my Carling?" And people have not queued to get into a stunning venue like that in the centre of York to then walk out because you haven't got Foster's.
No.
They're going to go, "What is the lager that you do have then?" At which point they're going to get introduced to something that has flavour.
Yeah.
And they're going to have this
Shocking.
revelation.
Make sure your bar staff are trained well enough that when people come in, they can expect that question. And it happens all the time here, and we train our bar staff. Just like when someone comes in, pitch them the right beer that they're asking for with a little bit of training, a little bit of enthusiasm. It's not an issue. You're going to end up selling them a beer they will like more. They will.
I mean, the joke used to be someone walks in and goes, "What's your nearest to John Smith's?" And you go, "The door."
I did actually use that line once, and the response I got from a customer was not good.
A world able to go because of Tom doing it like a light American lager and those kind of things. We're actually able to go, "Well, that's your Foster substitute, that's your Carling substitute, that's your Peroni substitute, that's your John Smith substitute." We'd never call them substitutes. We'd call them upgrades.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I was about to do a you and do a spoiler, which I'll save. But let's just say that there's some exciting news. Hasn't been agreed yet, but it's almost there on a certain football club in the town and a certain beverage choice you might be able to get in a certain venue soon.
Next time you chastise me about oversharing, I'm going to remind you of this moment.
We'll see. See how good my negotiation skills are.
Have you been to the loo yet?
No, I'm waiting.
What is going
I'm
on?
waiting till 9 p.m. I've got 3 minutes because I'm going to say at least I can get through the full 2 hours.
Did you purposefully like dehydrate yourself? Because
I fit my catheter before
that changes the vibe.
So yeah, speaking of which, how do you get through a full 1.5 hour brewery tour without needing a wee?
With difficulty sometimes.
because the
customers never do.
Because they're drinking, he's not.
Yeah, no, I'm not drinking on the brewery tours. I'm not. Would never drink on the job. Generally speaking, seriously, genuinely I don't, because if I've got doing 2 or 3 brewery tours in a day and I have all of the tasters, by the time I get around to the 3rd brewery tour, it's like, this is a tank. It's a tank. So I genuinely don't.
Matt train you?
I'm going to say, I'm not going to name names, although somebody may have just have done that. A former brewer of ours, when we tried to do it so brewers did the tours, thankfully I happened to be in the building at this particular point on a Saturday, and I think we did 2 or 3 tours at the time, and the first tour had been done, and the second tour was about to start, and then someone comes up to me and they're like, have you seen such and such?
This particular employee?
I was like, yeah, I did a while ago, but I've not seen him for a bit. And then a little bit more panicked about 5 minutes later. They were like, yeah, he's doing the next tour and we can't find him. Have you seen him? I was like, no, I've not seen him. And then about 2 minutes later, they're like, what are we going to do? He's not here and the next tour's about to start. So I stepped in, did the next tour. And then about half an hour after the conclusion of the next tour, we found him asleep in the staff room upstairs, because it turns out
on the malt sack, wasn't it on the malt sack?
No, if he'd been on the malt sacks, we'd have seen him.
Yeah, he'd be up on the
He
mezzanine.
was asleep in the staff room upstairs, because it turns out he had been partaking in the drink alongside the punters.
It's a risky game to play.
Yeah.
You can't do it. If you're doing a whole day of tours and you have to be on all the time, if you start drinking from tour 1.
Thank God I was in the building at the
Yeah.
time, because it's not like we have many people trained to do that.
No, it's there's
Our next drink's here, and it looks like I've gone 2 hours, so I best go to the toilet.
does that mean I need to?
Oh, sorry, we need to thank you for your time as well. So
I'll
I'll let Lee do that.
Right. So, you promised, sure, guys. Can we do that one more time? As a thank you to James, Digby.
Before I go, I would just like to do a little bit of promotion of the venue. For those watching at home and those in the room, we are now doing film nights at Brew York. And coming up, we've got next Thursday, we've got Django Unchained. And then we will have Die Hard in the first week of December.
Otherwise known as the greatest
Christmas film ever. And then, against my wishes, we will, in the week before Christmas, be showing the film Elf. We're not ticketing them, so it's first come, first serve on the tickets for those. But please, if you feel the need to come and watch a film here on a Thursday night, it's all on our Facebook page and on our website. So please come down. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, boss.
Wow. And there goes my brother from another mother. So our final guest is not able to join us on camera just yet because he's the one handing the drinks out. So,
Mike.
Digby returning his mic. So Ant is about to join us on camera. You want that one, dude? You should be familiar with these mics. You're usually placing them on us.
Yep. Should be. So don't forget to take it off when you go to the loo.
Yes, boss.
So what did we get to? What did I miss?
You've not missed much on that. We've just been doing the exchange. So Ant is, and I'll never ever get your job
You
title.
can start calling him Anthony on the street because we're on the
Is our Can I just say digital content manager?
That'll do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He has a much longer job title than that. But basically, if you've seen it online or anywhere else, and it's a representation of what we do graphically, chances are it came off his keyboard.
Pretty much, yeah. I think it's digital design and I've forgotten myself. Artwork content. Too long. Pictures I normally call myself, so I just do pictures.
We simplify it because Ant and the rest of the marketing team share an office with the finance team, so it's pictures and numbers, nice and easy.
Yeah, well, we haven't actually written it on the door yet, but we call that office the Pictures and Numbers office.
So, Barrel Age Nightmare of Brew York,
Talk about the beer.
9.8%. Again.
Oh, you no longer have to be prompting us off camera.
No.
You can actually now say you're here to talk about
Hurry up.
Let's talk about the beer, shall we? What a great idea. Yeah.
So what's in this? Peanut. So
Am I doing this one again?
Yeah.
Hang on, mate.
it's got LG on the corner of that prompt there.
That's probably a prompt. Yeah, so as we stated earlier, the barrel age version is the previous year's Nightmare, which is the previous year to that's Fairytale. I think I'm doing this quite well.
Yeah, I think we've said this a few times as well.
So this is the third iteration of the beer that had the peanut, the pecan, the maple, and the vanilla. And this is the one that spent time in barrels, and the particular barrels that this has been in is the Heaven Hill bourbon barrels. So bourbon is probably the most preferred barrel to age beers in, particularly stouts. It has a nice kind of sweet character that really lends itself to this kind of thing. And beyond that, bourbon barrels are incredibly widely available. They're quite easy to get your hands on. They're not going to be overly expensive. And that's because of the American approach to bourbon production. So in America, to make bourbon, for it to be called bourbon, it has to be aged in virgin oak. So they would take a French or an American oak barrel, they would age bourbon in it, and then they have to immediately discard it because for them it cannot be reused. So there's this beautiful kind of like synergy across the Atlantic because in Scottish whisky production, you're not allowed to use virgin wood to age whisky. You have to take a wood that has previously had something aged in it, and therefore the most common thing they're going to do that in is bourbon. So they'll take a wooden cask that formerly had bourbon in and they'll age whiskey. Every now and again you'll get these beautiful, more kind of rare release whiskies where they'll be like Oloroso or Pedro Jimenez sherry and port casks. But you're going to pay a lot more for those because those wooden barrels are not really released to market all that often. Whereas, as I've just said, bourbon ones only get used once. They contain 200 litres of bourbon. They age it for, 5 years maybe, and then it gets shipped somewhere else in the world to age something else in. So these are the ones we can easily get our hands on, and over the years we've worked with multiple different types. My personal favourite is probably Buffalo Trace. I think that's the best balance between what bourbon is and the sweetness and how it complements the beer. I also really like Wild Turkey that we've worked with previously. But Wild Turkey is a strong bourbon. It's a really pronounced bourbon.
Would have been good for a Christmas beer though, wouldn't it?
Turkey, I guess so, yeah.
At least someone's with it.
And I really like a beer that's been aged in the Wild Turkey barrel because you get a really pronounced bourbon character. You can never call it balanced.
Yeah.
Because the Wild Turkey is so strong and it's going to stomp all over the beer. But yeah, and Heaven Hill, I guess, is more like Buffalo Trace in that it is a bit more balanced. It's definitely at the sweeter end of the kind of Jim Beam, Jack Daniels end of the scale, and it's a more delicate kind of character. But all the same, like any bourbon barrel, it really is a beautiful thing to age something in.
One of the things that I'm a little bit intrigued about, because back in the day when I used to have to physically get my hands dirty and then do the production side of things, when we got our first barrel-aged beers, we got our first barrels on site to try, there was actually quite a lot of bourbon in the barrels. So we'd pour it out and you get pure, what would you call it? Distillate strength bourbon with a lot of char in and stuff. And you put it through a pair of tights and you can drink some interesting stuff. It was lucky Lee was wearing his tights that day, but otherwise we'd been screwed. But, I've not heard any stories about that since we've started using it hundreds of bourbon barrels. Have you guys stopped drinking it?
No.
Oh no. No, we don't.
No, we just all drink it and play games of pool.
No, I think we've not got as lucky recently as you and I did in the early days. I remember one time we got a good couple of litres out of one.
It was one of those 3 litre jugs that we
and
used.
It was a charry mess, but yeah, it was potent stuff.
How much does one of these barrels cost then?
What, a full of this beer?
No. If you were to buy an empty bourbon barrel, you're going to pay less than £200. It's going to fit like 190 to 205 litres in, and it's going to cost you less than £200. If you wanted to buy a sherry cask of equivalent size, multiply that by about 8. Yeah.
So we do like to experiment with the different barrels we use for barrel aging, but it's sometimes quite cost prohibitive because ultimately we'll probably, we'll definitely get one use of that barrel, but usually after that one use, most of that flavour's gone into that beer. We could use it again, but we could be wasting both the the beer that goes into it and the time and all the rest of it. So we have to be really selective. And what a lot of established breweries who have good barrel aging programs do is they do the first wash, the first use of that barrel for something like this, and then they'd maybe put it into their side project, which might be a sour or a funky side of the business where they want